that are being spent at the 3 and 4 spots. So I'm very impressed with his team. What he's telling us is he knows something about wide receivers that no one else knows about. And, he's going to impress us with his wide receiver picks. Now, if he comes on the show and tells us that wide receivers aren't important, that he's zero wide receiver, then everything I just said about him is wrong. But it will be interesting to see how he continues to put together his team tonight.
All right, so for those of you who are just joining us, which is literally everyone, I never hit the go live button, which is the most crucial thing you need to do when you are streaming a video or audio podcast. I'm totally.
Yeah, my best work was in the first round, everyone.
It's so terrible. It's only one of our biggest podcasts of the year. So yeah, my fault on that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll just bring you through everything. Check out myffpc.com for Empire Leagues, Dynasty Startups, the Fantasy Pros Championship, the Best Ball Championship, Best Ball Tournament, and the Superflex Best Ball Tournament as well. To recap, as we are in the 5th round here tonight, Mother of God, here is who is drafting. Biplab Mandel is drafting first. Clyde Woodruff's Flashers are drafting second. JD, that's John Daniel. We the North drafting at the 3rd spot. Todd Aaron from the Mad Genius of Fantasy Football, that franchise, is hitting cleanup. Dan Williamson, the overhyped sleeper himself, drafting 5th, followed by Michael Zuka from the Mongooses franchise. Gabriel Gibellino is drafting 7th. John Barry is selecting 8th tonight. Kobe's Crew, that's Kevin Bassiker. He is drafting 9th, followed by Tommy Jones's Kill Them All franchise at 10, Larry Jilton's Rednecks at 11, and Andrew Schellenberg's Clutch Like Shelly at 12. And by the way, and I know this didn't go out before, I'll say it again, Larry Jilton, I sent you an email. Respond to it when you can, because I'd love to hear what you have to say to it. Okay, so that is the Revelations draft tonight. We'll get into the Genesis draft at the top of the hour tonight. Once again, these are the first $150 classic live drafts of the season here, and then we're broadcasting them live on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We're into round 5. I'll take you through round 4 here. What happened? Devontae Smith goes to Andrew Schellenberg at the 401. That is 4 consecutive wide receivers drafted there, followed by Lamar Jackson. Mike Evans goes to Tommy Jones after that at the 403 as his 3rd wide receiver off the board. Isaiah Pacheco will be the running mate in the backfield with Rashad White for Kevin Bassiker's squad. Cooper Kupp will be split out wide next to Amon-Ra St. Brown for the bottom feeders. That's John Barry's squad, drafting from the 8th spot tonight, followed by Alvin Kamara to Gabriel Gibellino, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, DJ Moore, and Zay Flowers, a big wide receiver run here in the 4th round, followed by Patrick Mahomes at the 411 and DK Metcalf at the 412. Ferrell, just at face value here, Josh Allen went at the 308, Patrick Mahomes at the 411 to Clyde Woodruff. To me, that's really good value here, where you see almost, more than a full round, more than 12 picks between Allen and Mahomes. I love the value for Mahomes here to Clyde Woodruff.
Yeah, and I bet a little later we're going to get on a quarterback run, and that'll be fun to watch and see how they're see how they're evaluated. Do you think Josh Allen will be the number 1 fantasy scorer at quarterback this year in the FFPC?
The thing is, when you talk about who's the number 1 receiver, number 1 running back, number 1 quarterback, I always think it's weird because it's very difficult to know. And I always take the field on that. So if you ask me a question like that, I'll just say, no, he's not going to be, but that doesn't mean he's not going to return, mid-3rd round value. If you're asking me to pick who it's going to be, Ferrell, I would say it's going to be Allen. But the odds would dictate that it probably won't be Allen, because that's one guy, right? It's difficult to pick out the guy. If Allen is going to be the number 1 quarterback this year, he's going to need a huge push from the guy who went with the 10th pick in the 2nd round tonight to John Daniel. That's Dalton Kincaid. And he's going to need a huge push from a certain rookie receiver that has not been drafted yet tonight. We'll talk about him when he does get drafted. But Josh Allen needs to get weapons on the outside. He needs to get weapons, but he needs those guys to deliver. I don't think Buffalo wants to continue to see him run the football and get all those fantasy points that way as he gets further and further into his career. That's probably not a good way to run your franchise quarterback's career. So if he's not going to do that, or if he's going to do less of it, you want to make sure that you are getting the ball to Curtis Samuel, to, I'll just say it, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, James Cook, and these other guys that they have on the team, because that's going to, relax the wear and tear on Josh Allen, and it's going to make him more. It's going to make him more forceful as a fantasy production maker because he's going to be able to stay in the pocket and he won't have to put his body in harm's way. So, yeah, Allen could be the number one quarterback this year, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a different way that he does it than he has in years past.
Well, that's our friend John Terry at the number 8 position taking Allen.
John Barry. John Barry.
John Barry.
John Barry. Yes. John Terry is – oh, no. God, this is the other thing I screwed up. No, I didn't screw this up. This is right. John Terry is in the Genesis draft, which we'll be covering at the top. We'll be covering that at the top of the hour. John Barry is in this draft tonight.
Well, whichever John it is, and I think if it's Terry, you ought to charge him for both of them since we're talking about him now. But Mr. Barry obviously thinks Allen is the pick. I really think the number one scoring quarterback this year will be Lamar Jackson. But I think if you take Allen that high, what you're saying is that you really believe in Josh Allen. And you're also hoping that these guys would pick up on quarterbacks a little more aggressively than they did as it comes back to you. And, we've had 26 more 20. You could do the math on it, Balky, better than I. We've had a lot of picks, and only 2 quarterbacks have gone off the board since he chose Allen. He might have wished he had waited.
Yeah, we just got a third one off the board since Allen in the 6th round. Before we get to the 6th round, I'll take you through the 5th. Evan Engram to Biplab Mandel. That is his first tight end off the board tonight. Joe Mixon, the 4th running back chosen by Clyde Woodruff here from the 2-hole. T. Higgins, the 3rd consecutive wide receiver drafted by John Daniel. James Cook, Josh Allen's real-life teammate, is the number 2 running back drafted by Todd Aaron from the 504 slot. George Pickens, the number 3 wide receiver for Dan Williamson. Kenneth Walker now is the first running back drafted by Michael Zuka, followed by Aaron Jones and James Conner to Gibolino and to Barry, respectively. Amari Cooper, the 2nd wide receiver selected by Kevin Bassiker. He goes at the 509 tonight. DeAndre Swift at the 510, followed by a pair of tight ends, kind of on opposite ends of their career. Brock Bowers at the 511, George Kittle at the 512. We now have 9 tight ends off the board through round 5. Ferrell, when you look at this draft, would you rather have invested a tight end with 2nd or 3rd round draft capital, or would you have rather waited around to the 5th round tonight to get a guy like Evan Engram, the rookie Brock Bowers, and of course the venerable George Kittle, who seems to put up numbers every single year? All 3 of those guys went in the 5th round.
I'm that drafter that would have invested in the 2nd and the 5th because I love the tight ends that are going in that round, but Ingram would be my favorite. Now, Ingram is the only one that I would put with the tight ends that were drafted in the 2nd and 3rd. The other 3, although Bowers I do expect a pretty good year for. The other 3, I think we are dealing with a few complications to keep them from being big fantasy contributors this year. So you're looking at a situation where when we get to Ingram, I don't think he's too far from some of the players that went in the 3rd round. But when we get to the end of the 5th, we're a long way from Ingram. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. And I will say, too, Permar99 just chiming in on the YouTube chat, speaking of Engram, Ferrell, he says there's an elite 7 tight ends in redraft this year, and Engram is the last one. And he was the 7th tight end.
Permar and I are agreeing, Bob.
Yep. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Permar was white hot on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show last night when Thor Nystrom and Alan Soslowski came on to chop it up with rookie drafts last night. Boy, Permar had a lot of stuff to say, and hopefully he's as vocal tonight because he was great on the show last night. Okay, let's bring you through the 6th round here. We left off with George Kittle to Andrew Schellenberg. Andrew Schellenberg now has 6 picks on his roster. At the 601, he takes his number 5 wide receiver, no quarterbacks, no running backs on his squad so far. But Jaden Reed, the Green Bay Packers leading receiver from last year, goes to him as wide receiver 29 at the 601. Christian Kirk off the board after that to Larry Jilton, followed by David Njoku, the 10th tight end selected tonight. Tommy Jones gets him tonight. David Njoku at the 603. Keenan Allen, the new Chicago Bear, goes to Kevin Bassiker after that. The 3rd running back drafted by John Barry is going to be Austin Eckler. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for tonight in tonight's proceedings, he goes to Gabriel Gibolino at the 606. Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders, the 4th receiver drafted by Michael Zuka. And then C.J. Stroud comes off the board as the 5th quarterback selected, the number 1 quarterback for Dan Williamson tonight to pair with his Nico Collins selection at the 408. Marquise Brown, Tank Dell, Ladd McConkey, and Rashee Rice go off the board to end the 6th round. Brown to Aaron, Dell to Daniel, McConkey to Woodruff, and then Rice to Mandel. Wow, what a 6th round. So the first thing I want to talk about is this Ladd McConkey pick at the 6'11 tonight. Ferrell, if we look at the Fantasy Pros ADP right now, courtesy of Fantasy Mojo, Ladd McConkey is normally going as the wide receiver 45 at the 901. I do like him quite a bit for Dynasty, but to take him basically 2 full rounds ahead of where he was going, I feel like you probably could have got him at the 702. I guess I don't know if you could have got him at the 811, but the McConkey pick is really surprising. That the Flasher squad, Clyde Woodruff, a big believer in the rookie wide receiver from the Chargers, but maybe he is their leading receiver this year.
Well, you know what? He's one of the most able bodies that will be at practice once rookie minicamp starts, because they're running camp with 2 or 3 receivers right now. No, that's not an impressive pick. He went off tilt with Mixon in the 5th. He should have got a receiver there. There were some quality receivers still on the board. Now he's reaching, and he's reaching too high for these rookie players that he didn't have to reach this high on. I thought he was onto something very, very clever through the 4th round. We're going to have to see a rally from him. Boy, there's some good running backs going off the board here too, man. It's impressive. And I love both his rookies. He just paid more than he had to pay for them, and now he's going to be looking for some receivers who he can count on for 80 catches, and I don't know where he's going to find them.
I do like the value for Keenan Allen here going at the 604 to Kevin Bassiker. I wonder if that's like, Ferrell, do you think Keenan Allen is going to slide a little bit in drafts because of the Odunze pick? And people are like, well, mother of God, he's got Moore, he's got Odunze. Do I really want to soak a 5th round, 6th round pick into Keenan Allen? Maybe Keenan Allen slides a little bit further here as we move forward throughout the summer.
Stack those 2 players, and I think you can do it and do it well. You'll have tremendous performance from Allen in the first of the year. The Bears are an interesting prospect this year, and I would go on to try to find some additional receivers on that team. But what do I think about Keenan Allen? I think he's a 90 catch player this year.
Even with Moore, even with Odunze.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he's a 90 catch player this year, because that's they restructured this team to get the ball in the air.
And it should be in the air. Caleb Williams could be breaking not only rookie Chicago Bears quarterback records, all-time quarterback single-season records for the Chicago Bears because of how bad the quarterback has been basically since who was the guy that they had way back in the day, Ferrell, whose name is escaping me now. It's not Wyatt Tittle. It's not Sammy Baugh. It's not Otto Graham. Who was the old-time Bears quarterback that put up all the numbers?
Oh, the old Brian Sipe? No.
This is prior to Sipe. This was – and Sipe I thought was a Brown.
Oh, gosh, do we need John Anderson when we could get him? The old school Browns quarterback.
I don't know why his name is escaping me.
Oh, my goodness.
Sid Luckman. That's way back in the day.
Okay, you're going deep into the history tonight. Into the history.
Yeah, if you had Sid Luckman on your hsffhour bingo card, go ahead and cross that off because we nailed it tonight. Let's get you through the 7th round here. Ferrell was just talking about all these running backs, these good running backs that went in the 7th round. We'll tell you who they were. Jake Ferguson, number 1, a tight end to Biplab Mandel, the 2nd tight end he has drafted tonight through 7 rounds. After taking Ladd McConkey in the 6th, Clyde Woodruff goes ahead and drafts Xavier Worthy at the 702, back-to-back rookie wide receivers. David Montgomery goes to John Daniel. That's his 2nd running back. He gets him at the 703. We got wide receivers galore for Todd Aaron's team here from the 4 slot. He gets Chris Godwin as his number 5 at the 704. Deontay Johnson goes to Dan Williamson after that, followed by a big running back run. Ramondre Stevenson to Michael Zuka. Javonte Williams goes to Gabe Gibolino. And then you're looking at Tony Pollard to John Barry, Zamir White to Kevin Bassiker, and Najee Harris to Tommy Jones. Larry Jilton then breaks the run with Calvin Ridley, the new Titans wide receiver, at the 7-11, and then Trey Benson, the second rookie running back off the board tonight. He goes to Clutch Like Shelley's team. That's Andrew Schellenberg getting Trey Benson as his number 1 running back in the 7th round. Wow. Okay, lot to unpack here. Ferrell, let's talk about it with Clyde Woodruff at the 2 slot tonight. He loaded up on running backs. He gets Patrick Mahomes. And then for his wide receivers, he goes back-to-back receivers. Yes, we get that. But back-to-back rookie wide receivers, McConkey and Worthy. I think this is a good strategy if you're playing in the Fantasy Pros Championship or the best ball tournament. We're trying to win a 6-figure, or in the Fantasy Pros case, a 7-figure grand prize. If both these receivers hit, mother of God, you're onto something here. But in a closed 12-team league, what do you make with the McConkey and Worthy picks? Your top 2 wide receivers for Clyde Woodruff will be rookies this year.
Yeah, well, it's like we were talking about his team. He's overpaid. He's had to overpay for these rookies. He believes in them. He's trying. He's coming at this in an alternative strategy that you would take to a bigger contest. And I don't think he's positioning himself to win this 12-team league. He's trying to win something else here.
He's trying to win something else.
He's thinking big picture when he's putting together a team that Balky, he's at the crap stable and he's betting the hard 8 and nothing but.
Yes. You talked about all the running backs that you liked in this round.
Yeah.
I'll just list them off: Montgomery, Stevenson, Javonte Williams, Pollard, Zamir White, Najee Harris, and then obviously Benson as well. Did you have a favorite among those 7th round running backs? Does one stick out more to you? I know you like several of them.
I do, and I can make cases for a lot of them. I think Pollard's going to be stronger than most fantasy players think. It's the same thing for Williams, a big year coming up at Denver. Najee Harris, I now like better since they did not renew the option, and he's essentially going to be a free agent. So there's a lot to like there, and for all the drafters that have focused on other positions in running back, I think we're getting to the point where they're going to hit the wall. They're going to be in a situation here in a round or two of great scarcity at the running back position.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You want to get them before they dry out. I do that. That happens to me all the time in drafts where, I get a little cute where I take an extra receiver and maybe I go tight end a little bit earlier, and then all of a sudden the running backs dry up before I even realize it. Let's go through the 8th round here. We get a good mixture of picks in this round: 3 tight ends and a few more running backs here. Jaylen Warren to Andrew Schellenberg at the 801. Zach Moss is going to be the 802. The new Cincinnati Bengal goes to Larry Jilton there as his number 3 running back. Nick Chubb to Tommy Jones at the 803, followed by a pair of tight ends: TJ Hawkinson to Kevin Bassiker, and then Dallas Goedert, the starting tight end for John Barry's squad from the 8 hole. Raheem Mostert, the 4th running back drafted here by Gabriel Gibolino, and the 4th running back out of the last 5 picks for him as well. Anthony Richardson, the quarterback 6. The last quarterback we saw was at the 608. Anthony Richardson is next at the 807. Rome Odunze is going to be the 5th wide receiver drafted by Dan Williamson, followed by Dalton Schultz, Jackson Smith and Jigba to John Daniel, Keon Coleman at the 811, and then Jonathan Brooks, another rookie, going to Biplab Mandel at the 812 tonight. So 3 tight ends go in this round. Anthony Richardson, Ferrell, I'm seeing him steamed up draft boards a little bit. I don't know if that ends anytime soon. There's a lot of people excited about Richardson, not only because of the player he is, but the fact that he gets Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and now A.D. Mitchell joining that squad as well. What do you make of Anthony Richardson as the 6th quarterback off the board here in the mid-8th? And Ferrell is gone again. God, I got to start paying attention to this. This is ridiculous here. That is what we have in the 8th round, ladies and gentlemen. More tight ends off the board. We're seeing 14 of them now off the board through 8 rounds. If you're not familiar with the FFPC, you have tight end premium scoring in this. So 1.5 points per catch for tight ends in this format. We did see a couple of running backs or a couple of rookies go off the board in the 8th round with Coleman and Brooks. Brooks is interesting to Mandel here as his number 2 running back. I'm interested to see what Andrew Schellenberg is going to be building here going forward as we enter the 10th round. He went heavy wide receiver in the first 6 rounds. He peppers in a George Kittle there. He's gone with 4 straight running backs, and I'll bring you up to speed on the 9th round here as we go forward tonight. Devin Singletary at the 901. Pat Freiermuth goes to Clyde Woodruff at the 902. Pair of quarterbacks off the board, quarterback 7 and quarterback 8. Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott to Daniel and Aaron. Jalen Wright to Dan Williamson. Jalen Wright now the 2nd rookie that Dan Williamson has selected, back-to-back rookies for the overhyped sleeper from the 5 spot tonight. Some more receivers, Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, and Cortland Sutton, 906, 907, 908 to Zuka Gibolino, and then to Barry. Jordan Love and Kyler Murray, another couple of quarterbacks here. Jordan Love to Kevin Bassiker. Kyler Murray off the board to Tommy Jones. And then Larry Jilton ends up taking Brian Thomas, the rookie receiver from Jacksonville, and Tyjae Spears off the board at 9-12, the 3rd consecutive running back that Andrew Schellenberg has selected tonight. Ferrell, I'll bring you back in and talk with you about the quarterbacks that have gone in the 9th round. Seems to be a sweet spot. I see a lot of fantasy goodness from Burrow, Prescott, Love, and Murray. If you wait on quarterback this year, maybe the 9th round is the spot you want to grab one, because I love a lot of the value I'm seeing here.
Man, did we get a run? And there's our favorite, Balky, right there, going to team number 9. Congratulations, Kevin. Jordan Love. That's who I would want in that situation. And I must apologize, Balky, for coming in and out and say hello to our good friend from the KFFSC, Thomas Glaze, that dropped into the chat.
Oh.
But it's Oaks night here in Kentucky, and Derby Eve here in Kentucky, and my neighbors know that on the podcast I am not available Friday night. It's at 10 o'clock. I'm not available, but it's not 10 o'clock, and there's my availability is there's a request for my availability, and a young lady at the door with drink in hand just came up with a new phrase, and she said, "So there will be no pre-pod," and so I liked that. There's no, because we're already deep into it. So, I think what we're dealing with here, there's still quarterbacks that are out there. I think it will be real curious to see what happens with Cousins in this draft tonight. Mm-hmm. I believe that we're beginning to see. Do we have any team with 2 so far?
Two quarterbacks?
We don't. No.
No, nobody. We do have. I'm looking at it right now. 2 teams without a quarterback. Everybody else has just one at this.
When you look at the talent of the other positions in the 9th round, there's some excellent players to pick here, especially at the wide receiver position. I think Watson and Sutton. I don't know if I want Watson as my number 2 receiver, which Kevin has him as, but right. There's very good wide receivers that you can count on delivering here. So I might have wanted to go quarterback a little higher. I like Hurts and Stroud where they win in the 6th round. I probably would have wanted to spend a little more draft capital on that position because I like the other skill position players available in this round.
The other thing too is, okay, let's do this. I want to take you through the 10th round here, but the one pick I wanted to focus on before we move to the 10th is Pat Freiermuth at the 902. Ferrell, he goes as tight end 15 tonight. Now, he normally goes as tight end 16. Okay, not a big deal to be one tight end away. But he was basically drafted right around a round and a half, almost 2 rounds earlier than he's normally drafted tonight. Am I missing something on Freiermuth? Maybe this is a better question for Clyde Woodruff drafting at the 2-hole tonight. But you look at what he did here. McConkey, Worthy, Keon Coleman, 3 consecutive wide receivers, and then Freiermuth, again, about a round and a half, 2 rounds earlier than he normally goes. This is turning into a very interesting draft after he selected 4 running backs with his first 5 picks.
Who's the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh right now?
It is going to be Arthur Smith this year.
Now, what Arthur do with a modestly talented individual that Atlanta spent draft capital on at the position? I think that's got everyone a little bit gun shy on Freiermuth, and that's why he'll continue to be around this. Now, you're asking, is he a bargain at the 9 position? No, I think that's where he's going to fall, and I think that's where he's going to stay. What do you think about his quarterback, Balky?
Well, it kind of depends, right? Because I just assumed that Wilson was going to be the starter all year.
Yeah.
And maybe he still will be if they're serious about Justin Fields returning kicks at Pittsburgh, which is crazy. But I think that they traded for Fields with a future in mind for him. So I don't know if that future starts this year or not. Wilson is a competent quarterback. I don't know what he's going to be like with Smith. And obviously you have Pickens there. And who was the other cat that they added in the draft, Ferrell, in the 3rd round, the rookie who's escaping me right now?
I don't think it particularly matters. But C.J. Stroud, who I see tremendous potential for, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last year. We all label Russell Wilson as such a disaster last year. It was a disaster for the team, but his touchdown to interception ratio was 26-8 last year. He can still spin it. He knows what he's doing. I think he's going to utilize some of these. Look, if you go to any player at Pittsburgh and say, hey, who do you want to catch the ball from, Wilson, or you want to go back in time with Pickett? You're gonna get guys that think they've got a much better year in front of them. Freiermuth's there. Wilson, Cousins, there's some value there that double-digit rounds for that potential production you can get out of them suggest waiting on quarterback might not be a bad move.
Roman Wilson was the rookie receiver I was trying to think of.
Receiver. I thought you were talking about another quarterback.
No. Because you're right. I mean, all that it comes down to in Pittsburgh this year, it's either Wilson or Fields, and how that ends up playing out may or may not affect not only those two guys, but the skill position guys catching balls there as well. Let's go through the 10th round. Ferrell, Chase Brown, the 4th consecutive running back drafted by one Andrew Schellenberg from the 12th spot tonight. Curtis Samuel, the new Buffalo Bill, goes to Larry Jilton. DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Williams after that to Jones and Basker. Cole Kmet, the 2nd tight end drafted by John Barry. Blake Corum, the rookie running back in Los Angeles for the Rams, running back 38 tonight as the number 5 running back for Gabriel Gibolino. Then you're looking at Brian Robinson, followed by Jerry Jeudy, the new Cleveland Brown in 2024, to Dan Williamson. Ezekiel Elliott, who has just signed with the Dallas Cowboys for 2024. He goes to Todd Aaron here as his number 3 running back, 40th overall. Zach Charbonnet, a surprise pick in the NFL draft last year by the Seattle Seahawks. He goes at the 10-10 tonight. Romeo Doubs from Green Bay going to the Flashers. That's Clyde Woodruff. And then Justin Herbert will be Bip Lab Mandel's number 1 quarterback as he gets him at the halfway point of the draft tonight. Quarterback 11 off the board. That's Justin Herbert to Bitcoin. So the 10th round, we look back on it, Ferrell. Let's talk about the rookie there in Blake Corum at the 10:06. Running back 38. He's going to be in the same backfield as Kyron Williams, who went at the 205 as running back 7. Call me crazy. I do believe those players should be drafted much closer together than they were tonight.
I don't call you crazy, and I certainly think that where we're going to see Corum is all over the board. It's big spread across the spectrum of where he'll land based on how he's used in the preseason. And I love the player, and that's a nice pick. There's how many running backs on that squad, Balky?
On the Rams?
No, on this fantasy squad.
Oh, on the team that drafted Blake Corum?
Yeah.
That is his number 5 running back. He's already got Kamara, Jones, that's Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, and Raheem Mostert.
With Mostert and Kamara, Williams' injury history, I can see how he'll continue to draft running backs, and you might want to go young. So I like that pick.
I'm looking at the ADP right now. Kyron Williams went at the 205 tonight. His ADP is the 207. Blake Corum went at the 10:06 tonight. Blake Corum normally going at the 10:03. So this was very on brand as far as how these players have been drafted. I do think it tightens up as we go forward. Let's get into the 11th round here tonight. Gus Edwards leading things off for Biplab Mandel, followed by Jacoby Myers, the 5th wide receiver overall drafted by Clyde Woodruff, and the 5th wide receiver drafted in the last 6 rounds for him as well. Marshawn Lloyd from USC to Green Bay. He is going to be John Daniels' number 4 running back drafted tonight, Rico Dowdle and Jerome Ford to Aaron and Williamson, respectively. Speaking of Green Bay, Luke Musgrave is going to be the number 2 tight end for Michael Zuka's Mongooses, followed by Jamison Williams to Gabriel Gibolino, and then you have Khalil Shakir, who is still a Buffalo Bill and drafted as the number 4 receiver to John Barry tonight. J.K. Dobbins, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, he is now a Los Angeles Charger, and he's the 4th running back drafted by Kevin Bassiker. We finally have a team double up on quarterback, and that is Tommy Jones at the 10 spot tonight. He took Kyler Murray at the 9-10. He gets Brock Purdy at the 11-10. Kendra Miller off the board to Larry Jilton at the 11-11. And then Jaden Daniels, the 13th quarterback drafted at the 11-12 tonight. Not to keep harping on the quarterbacks, Ferrell, but a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, we have not seen him do it at this level before. Not to say he can't, but are you on board with Daniels as the quarterback 13 tonight, or would you rather see a veteran there for Andrew Schellenberg, who did not have a quarterback on his team?
Yes, Schellenberg is projecting big success for Daniels. Maybe he thinks he can come back and grab some of those veterans we're talking about later. I don't think anyone else would have taken Daniels, so he would be available to him later. He wanted his guy, and he's got him.
He's got him, indeed. How do you look at that Dallas Cowboys running back situation? I mean, we saw what Todd Aaron just did in this draft tonight. He gets Ezekiel. He's actually gone with 3 straight Cowboys here. and if you count Dalton Schultz as a former Cowboy, it's 4 straight Cowboys. Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott, he drafts at the 10-09. Rico Dowdle at the 11-04. Is that something that you would like to employ on your teams this year, where you're trying to get a piece of the backfield and maybe you got a huge share of the backfield with Elliott and Dowdle? I'm not speaking about a best ball team. I'm speaking about a classic team like we're seeing tonight in Revelations. Elliott and Dowdle, like you may not know exactly when to start them, but if you do guess right, or if there's an injury, that could prove very fruitful.
If you believe that you can get what you got with Elliott and Pollard out of that combo, I don't necessarily think you can. I love the signing of Ezekiel there. This is too much to pay for him, I think. It was one of the most interesting players that I wanted to see where he would go tonight. And I was a little shocked to see that he went this high. But his commentary about what you run in with that wall and the participation, and there was some facile commentary today from people that continue to write Ezekiel Elliott off in the sports media, as they called him a goal line back last year at New England. Well, New England wasn't a very good team last year. He contributed all over the field, and he caught his usual 50 passes. Give me a 50-pass running back who can catch 10 touchdowns, and I can see that. I just don't know what the mix of the rest of those players is going to be.
What about let's talk about the Bills running wide receivers here for a second. Khalil Shakir at the 11-08, Curtis Samuel at the 10-02, Keon Coleman at the 8-11. Do you have a good feeling on any of those players? Does that seem like where they should be going? Coleman obviously with the highest ceiling, and he's got the unwrapped gift, mystery door kind of aspect to draft him. And then you get the guys we've seen already, Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, going here within 2 rounds of each other. Start of the 10th round and then the middle of the 11th. Do you have a good feel on any of the Bills wideouts?
I really like Shakir as a player. I'm not sure. I don't see him moving up and taking a big share of what is left. He's a very good player. I think he's the kind of player that you would start in fantasy, and he just does not get enough targets, although he produces. He could possibly be the new Christian Kirk. If he does produce, no one really believes it. If you stay in that 11, and have you covered the 11th round yet, Balky?
We have not. Yes, we did. We got into the 11th round.
Covered the 11th. I think in the 11th spot with Jacoby Myers, if post drafting with the Raiders, and it looks like Minshew to me right now. That's the kind of player that would be very successful with Minshew at quarterback. Even with the receiving core and the new tight end, Myers continues to be a big target, much like what Pittman was for the same player last year in Indianapolis. So I really like Myers there in the 11th round. And we talked about the three rookies that Clyde was putting in on team number 2. And we then said he might come back with some veteran receivers. Dobbs doesn't have the resume, but Myers certainly does. So now he's filling in pretty well. I'm kind of impressed with what he did in the 10th and 11th round.
Let's go to the 12th round and see who impressed you there, Ferrell. Kicking things off is Antonio Gibson at running back 48. This is the 5th running back drafted in the last 6 picks for Andrew Schellenberg, followed by Caleb Williams to back up Lamar Jackson for Larry Jilton. Hunter Henry backing up David Njoku for Tommy Jones, at the 1203. And then we get some young wide receivers here. Xavier Legette to Kevin Basker, Quentin Johnston to John Barry, and then Ricky Pearsall off the board to Gabriel Gibolino here. Tyler Lockett after that to Michael Zuka. Tyler Lockett being drafted as the number 6 receiver here. Ty Chandler, the 4th running back drafted by Dan Williamson. And then we get a little quarterback round, a little mini quarterback round here. Tua Tagovailoa to Todd Aaron. Kirk Cousins at the 12-10 to John Daniel to back up Joe Burrow. Jared Goff backing up Patrick Mahomes for Clyde Woodruff. And then Joshua Palmer, the final pick of the 12th round, going to Biplab Mandel. He is wide receiver 60 tonight. So that is what we're looking at in the 12th round. You look at let's talk about a couple of rookie receivers here in the 12th round. Legette is one I want to talk about with Kevin Basker taking him as wide receiver 56, and then Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver 58 to Gabriel Gibolino. How do you view both of those receivers? Let's just talk about them in redraft circumstances. Obviously, Legette has the bigger opportunity for a larger target share, but Ricky Pearsall being drafted by the Niners on a better offense.
Yeah, they're both going to do very well, especially these are the kind of players that you need to make a playoff run late in the season. Pearsall is a player that we talked about how much we loved him, and he's, what a great landing spot for him. And he's going to be a significant contributor in that offense. I like what they're doing here. And, of course, we're going – he finally went. And as you review the 13th round, I can tell you the player that should have been picked earlier. But we'll get to that. But, yeah, I like Legette and Pearsall. And I'm having a hard time figuring out which one is going to have the bigger year. But I think Pearsall is going to have the more consistent year.
So we'll go to the YouTube chat right now, and we'll go to Dom Guzzetti's question here about the selection of Tua Tagovailoa at the 1209 to Todd Aaron. He says, why is Tua always drafted so late? He was on my Fantasy Pros League Championship team. Take advantage all day. Ferrell, do you want to take advantage all day of Tua Tagovailoa as quarterback 15 at the 1209? Just for reference's sake, when I look at the mojo on him, he is being drafted as quarterback 15 at the 1209 on average. This is totally on brand for Tagovailoa. Is he going too late for your liking?
I think it's smart. If he's going to go that late with all those tools that he has there, I think it's smart. Now, the reason he is because people always thought he would do a little more with his feet, and he hasn't. He uses his feet to get open in the passing game, but not to get rushing yards like people thought he was. And I think that's what's happened to his draft capital. But yeah, I mean, he's just the golden arm player of that AFC East. And there's certain matchups. Unfortunately, we don't have the schedule yet. I wish the NFL would get the schedule out a hell of a lot quicker than they do.
I think it'll be a week. I think about a week we'll have it.
Yeah, and it's just. So it's for my liking, it's still a month behind if we get it in a week. But nevertheless, when we do get it, he can put together Team 4. That's Todd. Yep. When he can put together a preseason list of who he's going to play, and I think he'll come down about 9 or 10 times for Prescott and 6-7 for Tua.
We're going to make the switch to the Genesis draft in about 2 minutes or so here, and we do have a guest lined up to kick things off with that Genesis coverage. He'll talk about his draft. I'll tell you who that is coming up in just a couple of minutes, but let me take you through Round 13, Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback from Jacksonville, leading things off. He's backing up Justin Herbert for Biplab Mandel. Another rookie, Kamani Vidal, going to Clyde Woodruff here at the 102 spot, or at the 2 spot tonight as his number 6 running back. Tyler Algier, Brandon Cooks are the next 2 picks off the board to Daniel and Aaron, respectively. Bucky Irving and Ray Davis. Bucky Irving, the new Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He goes to Dan Williamson, and Ray Davis, who I believe got drafted by Buffalo, if I remember correctly. If I was in more Dynasty leagues, I would know for sure. With the FFPC Dynasty leagues kicking off tomorrow, I probably should be on top of this, but I'm not. But that's okay. Ray Davis, running back 53 tonight to Michael Zuka. Dontavian Wicks from Green Bay going to Gabriel Gibolino. The 19th tight end draft tonight is Cade Otton, and he is the 3rd tight end drafted by John Barry's squad, followed by Gabe Davis and Malachi Corley, another rookie, Jawan Johnson, and Jaleel McLaughlin off the board at the 13-12 tonight to Andrew Schellenberg. Andrew Schellenberg is collecting more green than a Wall Street investor. He has drafted 7 running backs in his last 8 picks. More to come on that in just a little bit. So let's talk about round 13 here, Ferrell. Rookie running backs galore. Kamani Vidal, Bucky Irving, Ray Davis. How do you feel about those guys here? Not necessarily what their dynasty value is, but which one of those 3 is most likely to contribute and be a force for these Revelations drafters here in 2024?
Being a force because he's such a violent runner is Ray Davis, and he's earned his stripes, and he fights. He fights for the opportunity to play. People in Buffalo are going to love him. McLaughlin is a wasted pick over here in the 13th round. I don't know what to think about Allgaier or Algier. I really don't at this point, although he's put up wonderful stats. I think that fantasy players are going to like Vidal because of his measurables. We'll have to see how the team's using him. Davis is my pick of these guys. And then, we could start talking all day about Malachi Corley, but that's a player that should go in single digits when we move on to the Genesis draft.
So, yeah, so that's interesting you say that. Why do you like Corley going in the single digits? Not necessarily for how he went in Genesis, but why do you think Corley went too low in this draft? Again, a redraft league.
No, he's a wonderful landing spot, and he's the most physically ready player to play. He is mature on and off the field, well coached. He's got that good Kentucky upbringing. He can't help that he went to a small school which was very underfunded in Kentucky, and he found himself at Western Kentucky, and he turned himself into just a wonderful athlete. And he's a steal here. Who got him? Was that Mr. Jones?
Ray Davis went to
whoever got Corley, congratulations, because that's the best double-digit pick on the board, and it's the best pick we've seen at the receiver position since Pearsall and about for 6 rounds.
Yeah, Tommy Jones did end up getting Malachi Corley there. Okay, I'm going to switch to the Genesis draft board. And speaking of Genesis, we're going to bring on a guy who's no stranger to the FFPC. He's no stranger to the KFFSC. He's no stranger to these airwaves. He's drafting number 2 in the Genesis draft tonight, which I will bring up shortly. Please welcome aboard. Welcome back to the show, the Claw himself, Jake. And I always screw up your name. Jake Felice, Jake Valike. What is it?
Valike.
Valike. I knew it.
You mean I've been mispronouncing it all this time?
Eric, Ferrell, how you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. How do you feel about your draft? I'm bringing it up right now. Your draft.
I hope I'm not breaking up here.
No, you're not. You're coming through good. Tell us what do you think about your draft? 11 picks in.
Oh, he's not hearing us well.
Not bad. I was kind of a little annoyed I didn't get Andrews in the 3rd, but he was kind of a target for me. But everything else is kind of fallen into place. Would have liked to get T. Higgins in the 4th, but everything else is kind of standard.
Take us through here, and I'm going to bring up the draft board right now as soon as I can. I'm trying right now. Take us through your last pick here at the 12-11. Hunter Henry, you waited on tight end, and you drafted the 19th one off the board. Why did you wait, and why was it Hunter Henry here?
Yeah, I think I'm breaking up a little bit. If you can't hear me, maybe I can call back.
No, that's okay. We'll bump out. Listen, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna bump out Jake, and we'll bring him back if we can. And I'm gonna bring up the draft board right now for the Genesis draft, which I think we have here. Yep, there we go. And let me get my format straight here. Boom. Okay, this is the Genesis draft that we have going on right now. We're going to try to get back to Jake in a little bit. He's on the clock right now, so we shouldn't be talking to him anyway. I want him to get his pick off the board. So this is where we're at with the Genesis draft, ladies and gentlemen. As we make the switch here, they are in the 13th round. We'll go back to Jake right now because he just took a player that we were talking about. Jake, we're bringing you back on right now. Kamani Vidal. What do you think about him?
I guess he's got as good a shot as any. I was really hoping to get Dobbins, but because he's supposed to be healthy. I mean, he claims to be 100% healthy now. So,
Jake has patented the Vidal moan. It's really great. What do you think about Vidal? I don't know.
You never get who you want, right? I mean, totally, but
it's classic.
So let's do this, Jake.
I mean, he's got a good shot as anybody there, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they're going to run the ball a lot, so hopefully he gets, some opportunities to see what
he'll get some play.
Hopefully good. So.
And I like the Vidal pick because he could be. I've talked with Thor Nystrom last night from Fantasy Pros, who thinks Vidal is going to be the starting running back in Los Angeles this year over J.K. Dobbins, over Gus Edwards. And if that happens, you just got a starting running back as the 50th one off the board at the 1302. But we need to talk about your team construction here, Jake. The listeners and the viewers can't see your whole draft, but I can tell them that you were all running backs and receivers through 10 rounds. 4 running backs, 6 receivers. Your first quarterback off the board was Jordan Love. Your first tight end off the board was Hunter Henry. Why were you waiting on those 2 positions? Why did you load up at running back and receiver so much tonight?
With the first 2 picks, the second and third picks, I went ETN. I just felt he was a value there, and I was kind of thinking about different. I was hoping that Andrews would come back around in the third, but he wasn't there. So ETN seemed like a decent value. I know he's got competition there, so I just kind of went with him, and then. I'm not sure if it's me breaking up, Eric.
It may be you. It is. And so we'll pop up with Jake. A bad internet connection. It happens. I'm sorry. But we love Jake. If Jake can make it happen, we'll bring him back on for sure. To reiterate, we have switched drafts from the Revelations to the Genesis draft tonight. I'll bring everybody up to speed on who's drafting in what slot. Jason Kalaga is drafting first in this draft. Jake Valike, who we just talked with, is drafting number 2 tonight. Brett Studebaker, who we're going to bring on shortly to talk about his squad from the 3 spot, followed by John Terry, and then Todd Hunter's Huggers drafting at the 5. So a couple of heavy hitters there, followed by a couple more heavy hitters. Hudson Reed at 6, Vincent Staffolino at 7, and then another guy who's no stranger to big prizes in the FFPC, that's Zeb Cap at 8. Mark Behrens, that's Norm. You know Norm. Everybody knows Norm. He's drafting at 9 tonight, followed by Don Terminello at the 10 slot. Stu Keen, who you saw on the RotoViz high-stakes lowdown shortly. I think it was last month we saw him on. And then our good buddy Ray Chung drafting from the 12 spot tonight. So a star-studded Genesis draft tonight. And we are looking at the 3-slot team. We'll bring him on right now. The Stud Dynasty 26er himself. It is Brent Studebaker. Brent, welcome aboard, man. How's your draft turning out so far?
If I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, I'm pretty happy. But that's just the way the board fell.
So you get Kincaid at the 210 tonight. You get Josh Allen at the 503. Keon Coleman at the 703 tonight. A lot of Bills on this team. When you're talking about, we kind of touched on this in our Revelations coverage in the first hour. When you're talking about a closed 12-team league like this, does stacking come into it at all when you're just trying to beat 11 teams rather than 11,000 or something like that?
I mean, I like to stack in a short league like this with I mean, if you look at Kincaid last year when Dawson Knox was out, he put up the same numbers that Sam Laporta did. They got 150 targets gone from last year. I'll take Kincaid in that situation. And then, like what you said, Coleman's going to take a little bit of time, but Josh Allen's going to throw the ball. So
Mhm.
I'll take the risk and stack because it'll give me a weekly advantage. There's going to be weeks where Josh Allen and Kincaid are going to hit for 2 or 3 touchdowns. And then you throw in one to Keon Coleman, you're going to get a high score easily that week.
And Keon Coleman should get extra contract consideration for just keeping everybody loose.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
gonna
not. I'm not
he's
talking
gonna be the
wins.
greatest addition to that locker room. He's just like a 26er. Keon
Yeah.
Coleman should be the 26ers will drive Coleman up because they've got all the lines, all the skills, all the ability to communicate in an off the wall sort of way. And then Brent, did you hear me pushing Malachi Corley, or was that already a player for yours that you've been targeting?
He was in my queue. I really wanted him. And I was like, Ferrell, please stop talking. Stop talking. Because I didn't want Spree
You're
to
not the
get him.
first person ever to say that, sir. But
I didn't want Spree to grab him
Right.
right before me. 26ers, we usually snipe each other a good
yeah,
bit. And I did not want him to snipe me because Rogers coming back, Garrett Wilson to get all the main coverage. I like Malachi a lot.
you who are the running backs, Balky, to go with Elliott and Edwards here?
So that's what I was going to ask you. So Elliott and Edwards, your 8th and 9th round picks. Prior to that, you took Josh Jacobs at the 303, and you also grabbed Bijan Robinson at the 103. And that's what I wanted to ask you about, Brent, because you had the opportunity, because CeeDee Lamb went to Jake Valike at the 102 tonight. You had the opportunity to take Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall. ADP would dictate that most people are taking Breece Hall. You went with Robinson. Why?
Running back, you don't have a lot of running backs in the league anymore that are going to get the amount of work that Bijan can get. I believe new coaching staff, Kirk Cousin, he checks the ball down a good bit, so that's going to add. He'll throw the ball to Pitts, he'll throw it to London. It's going to give Bijan a lot more opportunities to score. Last year, he had the runs last year, but when they got in the red zone, they took him out, or they didn't throw the ball to him or anything. Kirk Cousins is going to make sure he gets touchdowns.
I think the other thing that we should talk about here is the Marquise Brown pick. Well, this is one of the things we should talk about. The Marquise Brown pick for you at the 6'10". He was your second wide receiver drafted tonight. And obviously with the Chiefs not only having Rashee Rice on the team, but Xavier Worthy, it kind of clouds a little bit, and making it even more cloudy as Rashee Rice's off the field situation. Can you tell us a little bit about the expectation you have for fantasy production in 2024 for one Marquise Brown catching balls from Patrick Mahomes?
I think with his speed across the middle and being able to stretch the field, Marquise Brown can be a plug and play all year. Rice, I don't think is going to come back within first 6-8 weeks of the season, and I think Marquise Brown's going to be the one. It's going to take Worthy a little bit to get that rhythm with Mahomes. Andy Reid's never really trusted rookies right off the bat. He's slowed them in. I'm going to go with the vet and Hollywood Brown.
I think that's a very wise choice because you think about what Brown can do route wise, plus the speed element, plus how long the plays last with Mahomes extending the play. That's what makes it so beautiful. No, not even begin to talk about what the middle field has to do to handle Kelsey and what that does to the safety position. I think Marquise Brown has finally found the spot where he can show us at this late date in his career just how special of a player he is. I'm rooting for him.
You are on the clock right now, Brent. You have taken the wide receiver position. You have drafted 7 of them in the last 10 rounds. Are we going to see another receiver going off the board here for you at the 14-10?
We're not. I'm gonna grab a backup quarterback, which I never really do, but you're gonna have a hard time finding them. So I'm going to put the belt on, and I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers.
All right, there you go. The New York Jets stalwart, quarterback 17 tonight for Brent Studebaker in this Genesis draft. Rodgers backing up Josh Allen. Wow. And we should talk about this a little bit. You focused on, I mean, I know you got Kincaid in the second round too, but 7 wide receivers prior to this pick out of your last 10 picks. Can you talk a little bit about how you decided to put this team together as far as roster construction goes? Or are you just flying by the seat of your pants saying, this guy's a value, this guy's a value, I'll figure it out in the aggregate? Your team construction tonight, Brent.
Yeah, I actually talked to Jason Kalaga, who's picking out of the one hole.
Yep.
Literally 10 minutes before the draft. And I told him if Chase was there, I was going to take him. And then I thought, no, I'm going to grab the running back because there's more receivers to me that you can plug and play. Quentin Johnson, he didn't do nothing last year. He's going to be the number 1 with Herbert. Herbert's going to throw the ball. That's what he does. He's going to be on the roll. He's going to throw it. I just felt lock up a surefire running back. You can find receivers. You know, I got lucky. Marquise Brown. I'm not thrilled with T. Higgins at all because I think if he has a headache, he's not going to play this year because he wants his money.
Right.
But, you know, give or take that, I got a lot of upside. Shaheed with no Michael Thomas. Derek Carr throws the ball deep. Olave doesn't stay healthy. I love Olave, but I think Shaheed takes a step this year. And he'll be a number 3 that you can plug and play every now and again.
We are 14 rounds deep. Brent, you are on deck here. You got your second quarterback here. You have your 4 running backs. Only 1 tight end so far with Kincaid at the 210 and a lot of wideouts here. I'm looking at 7 of them. You're on the clock now. What are you thinking here at the 15:03?
It ain't very deep. You know, Green Bay's brought in another. They got Tucker Kraft, they got Luke Musgrave, they got Jacobs. I think they're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. If everybody knows, Tucker Kraft was the starter prior to getting hurt. You know more than anybody, Balky. I think with that, both of them, I think Kraft will be doable, and you know he can play. Naturally, he's not going to play if Kincaid doesn't, but I'm going to roll with Tucker Kraft just because I don't trust Aiden O'Connor for Michael Meyer.
Right. And now that they have Bowers in there
Yep.
as well, I mean, obviously that changes things. Yeah, Kraft is an interesting guy because when, you know, Musgrave, a guy who dealt with a pretty serious leg injury his final year in college, and you're like, oh, maybe it's a one-off. Well, he got hurt several times last year. Yep. And when he was out, Kraft actually put up some pretty good numbers. I don't think he's necessarily the field stretcher that Musgrave is, but in a tight end premium format like this in the FFPC, you don't necessarily need a field stretcher at tight end. No. He's the 24th tight end off the board tonight. Tucker Kraft backing up a guy you took in the second round, which obviously you expect big things for this year in Dalton Kincaid. I think that's a solid pick, my friend. Brent, thank you so much. How many rookie drafts do you have popping off tomorrow on the FFPC?
I've got 7 tomorrow. We got 26 2.0. That's already going. So 8 total.
Mother of God.
It's all right. It's fun. It's a good time.
It is fun. And I envy you because that is what I want. Like, I think tomorrow obviously I'm not in the FFPC, but I think I got 3 rookie drafts popping off tomorrow. And I'm like, God, I wish I had more. I'm always craving more dynasty leagues for sure. Brent, thank you so much for being a good sport and coming on tonight. We really appreciate you giving your insight and entertaining us. Good luck the rest of the way. You got 5 more picks left. Make them count, and good luck in 2024, my friend.
Thank you, Balky. Thank you, Ferrell.
You got it. The stud dynasty himself. That is Brent Studebaker hopping aboard tonight to talk about his team. So good to have him draft a Packer on the clock, which I always like. Let's go back to Jake Belike here tonight. The Claw drafting.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
That's okay.
I had to restart the internet.
Well, what pick broke the internet? I think that's the question. Was it Kamani Vidal? Was it JSN in the 8th round? Was it Marvin Mims in the 15th? Actually, I should ask you this too, Jake. Do you have a favorite pick in your draft so far tonight?
I I really like Deontay Johnson this year. I was pretty happy to get him, but I wouldn't say so much. I mean, I was hoping Kyler would fall in the 10th. He didn't fall. I had to get Love, which isn't a bad pick. Yeah, I mean, nothing really fell that great that I was super ecstatic with.
You should be ecstatic you have Love instead of Kyler. That can be very ecstatic that you've got that. You're walking around rich, Jake, and you don't know it. You're lucky and don't know it. I mean,
yeah, sometimes it works out that way, right? The guy you want is a flop.
Well, you deserve
stuck with somebody and he's like a world beater. But I was kind of hoping I was kind of hoping Daniels would come back. I know it was kind of a pipe dream, but because it would have been nice to have Love and Daniels, but
Jake,
figure something out during the year.
Jake, we got a question, or not a question, but a comment from the YouTube chat. I just threw it up on the screen from Bill Hollywood. He says you don't sound all that thrilled with your team. Is that sort of your feeling? Like you're kind of like, this is a mid team, or how do you feel about the team so far as we're 75% done with the draft?
I was at work, at work today, and I was kind of mapping out my draft during lunch, and I really wanted Andrews, and I was gonna couple him with Lamar. That kind of blew that out of the water, and I was hoping for what was I looking for in the second? I was hoping for ETN fell, so I took him. So I was hoping for like an Andrews Waddle turn in the second and third. I was hoping T. Higgins would come back in the fourth. I missed him by one. And the fifth, I didn't really have a plan. So
you might be glad you missed T. Higgins. Now, Bill Hollywood, I'll tell you this. Multiple dollars are retained in the playing account, in Jake's playing account in Kentucky. He has not shared with me his financial status of the FFPC, but he's got a load of Kentucky dollars waiting for him to play and trophies that are being made. And this is the same way he reacted to the teams when I asked him about them last year in Kentucky. Well,
I can't join any more leagues right now, but I will be in Kentucky, and I'll see you down there.
I was at lunch.
That was a good time last year.
I had extra lunch, and I don't know, and stuff like that. That's what you get.
Yeah.
But
I had a great time last year. Thanks, Ferrell. That was a really good time.
You're always welcome, sir.
Yeah, Jake, I don't think I know you and I drafted at the same time. Were we ever in any of the same leagues together out in Louisville?
Yeah, we were. We were in a morning draft together. I think you were a little under the weather.
No, I wasn't. Here's the thing. No. Okay. So let me just explain myself real quick. Everybody's going to assume like, oh, Balky went out and partied too much or whatever that night. No, I didn't party too much. I was in the midnight draft with Jim Cole the night before. And then I went home. I went back to my room and I worked for like 2 hours on one of my 75 jobs that I have. And I was like, I should just stay up. I'm going to regret it if I go to bed. I went to bed. I had like 90 minutes of sleep. And then I went to the table and all I wanted to do was just go back to bed. And it was so awful. I had a great time though. Like Ferrell got breakfast wheeled out. I got some coffee in me. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good. The problem is at the point I started feeling good, we're already 8 rounds in. And I'm like, okay, now I'm in salvage mode with this team. And you know what? I'm going to do the same darn thing this year too. I'm going to draft at midnight. I'm going to draft at 7 a.m. the next day at the sunrise at the Bourbon Turn. I always do it.
I got to be honest. I had thought you had gonna put a few back, so I felt terrible for you because I thought you had the headache going and everything else. So
no headache. I was just super tired. Like I couldn't.
Well, that's good.
And I was like this at the table, and I'm sorry for the people who are listening to this audio, but I'm just basically like this at the table. I'm like, nobody talk to me. All I want to hear is Ferrell saying, "Okay, we're gonna bid on draft slots," and I'm like, "Okay, then I'll be ready." But I caught snoozes anywhere I could. And I felt good after that. Like, honestly, I think I drafted at 10 a.m. that day. I drafted at 1 p.m. that day. I drafted at like 4 and 7. It was a great day. It was just the thing is, when I'm commissioning as many drafts, and I know nobody cares about this, but I'm going to share it as much as I want to. When you commission as many FFPC drafts as I do, like I have to sandwich all my drafting for the season into this Kentucky weekend. So I'm like, I told Ferrell, I'm like, I want to draft as much as possible.
Yes,
so
sir.
that's what I do, and yeah, I pay the price a little bit in the morning, but it's totally worth it.
I'm nervous about putting that 3 a.m. draft up.
No, I'm not in the 3 a.m. draft. That I will draw the line somewhere. I'm not in the 3 a.m. draft. That will not
3 a.m. alarm draft. Is what
There you go. Tom Gazzetti.
Even with all that, you're
Monkey
very
is in my
cordial to
bourbon
everybody, and everybody wanted a little bit of your ear. So,
Right.
you conducted yourself very well. So
Yes. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. You are on the clock, my friend, here. Time is running out in the 16th round. You took Marvin Mims at the 15:02. Who is going to be the selection here at the 16:11?
I don't know. What do you think, Ertz or Demario Douglas?
I would probably take Ertz, but it's totally up to you. Oh, you take Ertz. Okay. So Ertz is the pick there. Now, the reason I say Ertz is like I can see a pathway for fantasy goodness for him more than Douglas, especially with New England adding Polk and Baker in the draft. I just don't know what to expect from Douglas from rookie quarterback. I like the Ertz pick here, Jake.
Yeah, and I've been hearing a lot of good things about Baker, and I don't really know a lot about Polk, but it's going to be. There's a lot of new faces there, and
Yes.
Rookie quarterback. So, and I drafted Hunter Henry, so I'm kind of betting that he's got a decent year, but who knows? But I was listening to the some podcast today, and they were really high on Henry, and it sounded smart when they were saying it, but then I drafted him. And I wanted to kind of
You're listening to podcasts other than this one? My goodness, sir. You should repeat these if you want to get some. At least you haven't taken Irv Smith. That's what you haven't gone out there and taken Irv.
It's funny. Dave warned me about him years ago when he was a rookie and people were high on him. And I think RotoViz does some kind of chart, and he described it as not so good. So he kind of saved me from the Irv Smith nightmare over the years.
Well, when Pros versus Joes comes back around, chances are the pros will be jumping back on the Irv Smith bandwagon. So, where did Irv land now, Balky? He does have a new landing spot.
I thought you were talking about this draft. No, he has not been selected in this draft.
No.
As far as where he is playing in the
chart?
NFL, he is Kansas City is where
Kansas
he is
City,
playing.
yeah.
Jake, you are no, you just selected the Jets defense. Okay, I don't want to ask you about the Jets defense. I want to go all the way back to the first round. McCaffrey goes to Jason Kulaga at the 101. You have the opportunity to draft Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall. You went receiver instead with CeeDee Lamb. Can you tell us a little bit about your thought process? Prior to this draft, you knew you had the 102. You probably knew McCaffrey was going 101. Why did you land it? And I'm not saying it was a bad pick. I'm just kind of curious your thought process and why you landed on CeeDee Lamb there.
Yeah, I was actually in between. Like this early in the year, my thought process is draft wide receivers. Running backs can be kind of chaotic. You could hit on them late. You can draft a bunch late. I remember Chad years ago explaining this, and he described it a lot more intelligent than I could. And it makes total sense. Your wide receivers, and you draft a bunch of running backs late. And with the chaos of the off season in the NFL, you can do pretty well in that fashion. So I was in between Chase and Lamb at the 2, and then I was actually hoping to get like a Zamir White, Jalen Warren, and a bunch of Singletary was another one I was really after. But it just so happened when ETN fell, and I kind of couldn't say no to him. But and then HEN came around, and it's kind of like I'm kind of like a victim of drafting early drafts where HEN before the NFL draft was going much earlier. Now he's falling in the 3rd round, and I'm like, licking my chops, thinking, but there's a reason he's falling, right? But to me, I see him there, and it's like, oh, I haven't seen him there before. That seems like a great bargain. But whether it is or not, who knows?
The other thing I wanted to ask you here, Christian Watson at the 902 tonight. And I only asked you this because I'm a Packers fan and I know the soft tissue concerns.
I drafted him for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The bulky, dedicated pick of Christian Watson at the 902 tonight. No, but seriously, like when I know I've said on this show multiple times, he spent tens of thousands of dollars of his own money trying to figure out his soft tissue injuries. Green Bay sent him down to Madison this offseason where they have specialized equipment there to figure out what's going on. His dad was on X and posted that, yeah, they found something there and that he's already getting treatment for this. This was like a month and a half ago. Christian Watson is an interesting pick at wide receiver 46 because he's not somebody that you get super excited about. However, if the soft tissue things if they're fixed and if the hamstring issues don't pop up this year, mother of God, that is a really, really good pick in the early 9th round.
Eric, it's funny because I actually remember you saying that the father said they found something and it's fixed. And I thought to myself, well, you explained it better than I could, but like if by some miracle he figures his hamstrings out, I mean, this guy's, he's a stud, and that offense is pretty dialed in. Love seems settled in. LaFleur is a really good coach, and if he becomes the number one there, I mean, he could be really like, he could definitely outperform his ADP, obviously, but he could be pretty special this year. So, yes. I'm taking him. I'm also taking him behind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers. So he's my 6th. So I felt it was a pretty good gamble at that point.
Former guest of the show too, Scott Colby, chiming in on X tonight, saying, "Wouldn't Jaden Reed be the better Packer receiver to draft?" Well, yes,
I love Reed.
He was, and he obviously outscored Watson by leaps and bounds last year. But you have to consider, Jaden Reed cost you a 701 pick tonight, or not cost you, but Jason Kalaga took him at the 701 tonight, first pick of the 7th round. And then you look at Christian Watson. Well, he was only the 902, so he is much more affordable. So I think that's what we're always trying to do. It's a system where you're trying to figure out, yes, this guy may be better, but I can get this guy at this price, so he becomes the better draft pick. Like and this, Jake, how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about you like everybody, but where can you get them? So
right,
Reed, like he's right. Like Reed is a great pick. It's funny because he won a lot of people a lot of money last year, and I was with my brother-in-law, and he played on another site, best ball team, and Reed won him like $15,000 last year. So
we're against that. Although
congratulations, absolutely.
Not me, him. You didn't give any to me.
No, but to your brother. Hopefully, he took you out for a nice meal. At a minimum. The last question I want to ask you tonight, Jake, and I want to focus this on the Marvin Mims selection at the 1502, wide receiver 70. Listen, nobody's targeting players at this point. There's guys you like, and you're like, oh, he's still out there. Yeah, I'll take him. But nobody's like, oh, I got to grab this guy. I got to make sure I draft him in the 15th round or 16th round or whatever it was. But Marvin Mims is a player that is going to a team, or that is staying on a team, I should say, that no longer has Jerry Jeudy. It does have Troy Franklin on that team. And I know a lot of people are comparing Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims as a potential duplication of skills on that squad. Why did you like Mims enough to take him at the 1502? He would have been your number 6 receiver tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about why you liked him at that spot?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I know Franklin's a little redundant with Mims, and one of them's going to win, right? I mean, it's probably doubtful that they both have a big role this year. But Mims when he played, he was so dynamic last year. But I don't know what. It was very odd watching him last year because he did when he got opportunities, he did so many good things, but for some reason Peyton maybe I don't know, didn't seem to take to him for some reason. But he seems like, he seems like he's got everything it takes to be a really dynamic wide receiver. But we'll see.
You are on deck. I know I said that was the last question I was going to ask. I didn't expect everybody to rifle through this 18th round so fast. But Jake, you are on deck here. Who are you thinking about? And I know, and keep in mind, Brent Studebaker is probably listening to this right now.
Now, do you guys think Waller is going to retire? I know he was going through a divorce. He's probably going through a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
Here's my thing, and this goes back to the Baker boy, the Dow of Baker boy. No such thing as a bad pick after the 10th round, regardless of what I think about Waller, which I don't know. But and I assume this is a Theo Johnson question. To me, at this point, 18th round, you go for the upside. If Waller does retire, all of a sudden Theo Johnson is in a really good spot here. So regardless of what I think, it doesn't matter whether I think Waller is going to retire or not.
Yeah, I'll take him. Well, I'm a pretty weak at tight end. What do you think, Ferrell?
Well, I just think Balky did a fantastic job there dodging that Waller question.
I didn't dodge it. I
didn't see him going. But I like you. It's a Theo Johnson question. I'm a big Theo Johnson guy. So let's go young. Balky's gonna say why not Waller. I'm gonna say why not Johnson.
There you go. I'm saying why not Johnson as well, for what it's worth.
All right. I'm going to punt it with the kicker then. There's a guy my brother-in-law Keith keeps railing me about drafting, so maybe I'll take him next.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. We're going to bid you adieu. What's your X handle again, Jake?
At Snutchy V.
Snutchy V? Is that
I used to call my son Snutchy, and I made it, but I never changed it. So it's
all right. At Snutchy V is where we can follow you for all the great Evan McPherson talk on Genesis drafting, which we appreciate. Thank you so much for hopping aboard. This was so much fun hanging out with you, and I look forward to hanging out with you again in Louisville. Come in about, what is it, Ferrell? About 3.5 months away. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I need to get to work. Jeez.
Thank you, Jake. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
See you, brother.
That is Jake Valike, one of the original 26ers, the Claw.
I've been mispronouncing his name for like 4 years.
Well, you know what's funny is I had been too, and then when he was in Kentucky, I saw him drafting, and I went up, I introduced myself, I was talking to him, and I remember he told me the proper way to pronounce his name, and then I immediately started talking fantasy with him because I wanted to pick his brain, and I forgot.
I would have looked at him and said, well, that's not right. You're not pronouncing it right. Hey, we did such an interesting job of marketing the FFPC tonight in the intro that I would like to add that I, during the interview, I joined a Fantasy Pros 6-hour slow draft, league number 77301. So if anyone, it looks like we need two or three more players to go live. Starts when full. So I'm very excited to be drafting sometime this weekend on Kentucky Derby weekend, Balky.
So let me ask you this. What for a guy who is living there, what is your Derby weekend like? I mean, you're not going to the festivities, are you?
When I go all in, Balky. So no, I'm not going in. I think tonight's festivities with the next door neighbors, who continue to get louder and louder. It's very exciting considering I can't imagine the mix of people they've got over there and who's making this noise, but I'm going to go check them out when we're finished here. But it's an electric atmosphere in town, and it is something that everyone should do at least once. And if the bug bites you come rain or come good weather or whatever, you'll make your plans to be here every year. Someone earlier said pick favorites. I haven't really bet the Derby since 2017 when that was the glorious year of Always Dreaming's victory. But it is It's made for a guy like you, Balky. You would have the best time, and that's the great thing about it. If you wanted to come, or if Drew Maselli has talked about coming, the Dizzle's talked about coming, to go experience it with people who've never done it, that's the most fun you can have doing it. From my point of view.
Yeah, I think and I think I've shared this on the broadcast before. We always used to go up to Green Bay, which is about a half-hour drive from where I am. The Dizzle, the real Leroy, all the two-packer, all the luminaries. We would head up there, and since they've added a sports book up there in Green Bay, which will be just absolutely flooded with people when the NFL draft is there next year. By the way, coming from a guy who lives 30 minutes southwest of Green Bay, I still don't know how the city is going to pull off the NFL draft next year. Don't know how that's going to happen. The NFL seems to convince that they're going to do it. I don't know how they're going to do it. But they don't offer OTB betting there anymore, which is always depressing. So now I go to a private party every year to soak in all the Derby action or whatever. Scott Colby, former guest of the show, watching on X tonight, he wants to know who you like in the Derby. Ferrell, do you like anybody yet, or have you not done enough homework to give an unequivocal bet this horse answer?
Modest response from just some of the things I've heard. Sierra Leone has been bet down and is going, but it's still at 10-1. The horse has a lot of interest. You can't argue with the favorite,
Fiercest, I think, right?
Yes, that's a horse that is owned by a New Yorker that who got very, very wealthy selling a beverage company to Coke. So he's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that some of the owners are this year. Balky, the horse you would bet on, because I know you would pick a fantastic name. There's a horse out here called Track Phantom, and I think that's with your fantasy football names, I think Track Phantom is a horse that's just made for you.
Track Phantom is a fantastic bet. And by the way, if Track Phantom wins the Derby tomorrow, when you see the name, who's going to be surprised? Ain't nobody going to be surprised if Track Phantom wins the Derby tomorrow.
Phantom.
We're coming up on the coming up on the end of the draft tonight here in the Genesis draft. We'll take it through the 19th round. Jake Moody, Malik Washington, a rookie, Jalen Hyatt, the 2-year guy out of the New York Giants, Cameron Dicker, the Saints defense being drafted, Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother, Ed McCaffrey's son, the Texans defense, Baker Mayfield, the 24th quarterback off the board, the Colts defense, the Chiefs defense, Jake Elliott is the kicker, and the Pittsburgh defense is the final pick of the 19th round, going to Ray Chung, Hong Kong, drafting the Pittsburgh defense there. So now we noticed that Jake, we talked him up with Theo Johnson, Ferrell. He takes Evan McPherson. We sign off, and I'm like, okay, well, now he doesn't have to focus on being on the air and talking about his picks. He'll take Theo Johnson here. He goes Malik Washington at the 1902. And then, oh, by the way, at the 2002 tonight, his final pick of the draft, Stu Keen, a guy who you heard on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown a couple of weeks ago, he ends up taking one Darren Waller. And if Darren Waller's the difference, then so be it. As we wrap up coverage tonight, Ferrell, a lot of FFPCers have their dynasty rookie drafts going off tomorrow. We know you love Jamari Thrash, obviously, but we have not talked since the NFL draft actually ended, and all these players have new homes. Plenty of UDFAs out there as well. Is there any players that FFPC dynasty players who are drafting in the rookie drafts tomorrow should be paying attention to that maybe they're not giving enough attention to at this point?
No, definitely Thrash. Who, if I would have represented him, would have been a 3rd-round pick. But he'll have to settle for being a 5th-rounder to the Browns, and people will look at him and say, "This is the 4th receiver on the team." But I think as we move towards the middle of the season, Thrash will separate himself from the group. He's just a complete route-running receiver that I just love the way he plays, and yeah, that's a very good player. Staying locally, Isaac Gawendo, the running back with all the speed. And he was drafted, I think, on his pyramid measurables. He's a good player. a good college player that may be a better pro player. He would need to be a better pro player than he was here because he was part of a rotation. But maybe that's what the NFL likes because they're going to play a running back by committee at most teams too. So you look for a running back who's big and can get it going with 6 to 8 touches a game, and Isaac's that way. So we have to be very, very careful about rookies and their landing spots. But we've already mentioned Pearsall. It doesn't get much better than that. The top 3 receivers are going to do what they're going to do. We believe that the Raider tight end will be a success. Malachi Corley is the biggest winner in the draft for the least draft capital.
What about just talking about the Raiders with Brock Bowers? And Brock Bowers, by the way, in this Genesis draft tonight that we're covering for the last hour of the show, Brock Bowers ended up going at the 5'10" as the tight end 8 to Don Terminello as his number 1 tight end. He did get Juwan Johnson. He took Cade Stover in the 20th round to back him up. But Ferrell, I'm more concerned with a player that the Raiders utilized significant draft capital in 2023. And Michael Mayer. How does Brock Bowers affect not only Mayer in 2024, but down the road as well? Or what kind of offense are we going to see with 2 really talented tight ends on this squad?
Well, at some point, we're going to have to quit saying that Raiders, led by Gardner Minshew, are going to set all these fantastic receiving records. And I think Mayer is the player that has less fantasy value, but he's still got a great deal of football value. He's going to help make the Raiders better, but he's not going to get the receiving numbers that we want to get as long as Bowers is there. If Bowers is on the field, even in a double tight end format, the ball is going to be directed at Bowers, but it's going to be directed at him after it goes to Adams and after it goes to what's the guy who you just had in the 11th round, Jacoby Myers. Yeah. So it's Gardner Minshew sure is one lucky guy. He's getting this opportunity, and it could go the other way. It could go to O'Connell. It's still to be determined. But I just the way the team is structured, it just looks more like trying to take advantage of Minshew's skill set.
For a guy who follows the Raiders like you do, if people own Adams or Myers or Bowers or Mayer in drafts already, who should they want as the quarterback? Should they want O'Connell? Should they want Gardner Minshew? For fantasy production, who's the best quarterback for the Raiders?
Too soon to tell. We're going to have to really let that be a preseason contest, and I think it's being done now, and I don't think the contest is going to split the locker room as much as whoever gets the first call will get the opportunity, and it could be a quick hook if they struggle. But I don't see either quarterback given an opportunity to start in this offense struggling. So you should just basically go ahead and draft your Raiders, and I think that's been reflected in the draft. You should draft your Raiders and count on them having a successful offensive season with either of these quarterbacks.
Final question for you, Ferrell. We've kicked off now officially the 2024 drafting season. We have kicked off season 13 of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. For all of you haters who said we'd never make it to season 13.
So many haters.
Myself included. Like, we've done it. And we're in season 13. It's the season premiere. It's fantastic. We love it. But for everybody who is now officially in drafting season with free agency behind us, the NFL draft behind us, you looked at the drafts tonight. If there is one piece of advice that you can give the players who are watching this tonight, listening to it later, who are drafting in the Fantasy Pros Championship, drafting in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, the FFPC Best Ball, any of these redraft leagues, and knowing where these rookies landed, is there any piece of advice that you can give anybody tonight that is going to help them make them have better drafts in 2024? What would that piece of advice be?
Watch the games. Watch the local media. Follow these players on the social media. The more they're active, the more they feel engaged. go deep into the depth charts and familiarize yourself with these players that by the time that you're in game 6, 7, 8, you're not going, who is this guy?
Right.
Understand the teams that must win and have an attitude that does not show desperation, that shows like football is going to be fun, because everybody looks forward to going to work much more when football is fun. And I think that's the difference in the Raiders this year compared to what the Raiders were last year. I think Harbaugh keeps it loose with the Chargers. I have a question there at the New York Giants. How loose is that operation going to be? The Philadelphia Eagles. There's situations in the individual teams, and I think that's something you can look at. Is what is the vibe and what is the culture of those teams? And in the Dallas Cowboys, you're seeing certain players go high in the draft. I think that we're asleep. That the drafters are still asleep on Ferguson, the tight end. He was one of the players that one of our regular contributors in the chat talked about, that there's 7 elite tight ends. Well, I believe there's 8, and he should be counted amongst those. So there's so much to learn, and I would say draft now. You don't have to. There's so many low priced entry leagues to draft in the FFPC. We have some in the KFFSC, but it's bargain drafting. Draft as much as you can and understand where the players are going. That's going to be the flip side. Get Armani's guide, the Mojo, and follow the Mojo. See what you agree with. Don't fight it so much. I look here at players last year that people just really didn't have a handle on, and they questioned them because they had a hard time getting their career started. And I look at players that had the red carpet rolled out for them, guys like Nico Collins from very early. So don't give up on your players early that you draft. If you believe in them now, you get to week 3 and they haven't been productive, the Corleys and the Thrashes that we're talking about. Don't give up and let some other guy take advantage of those players when they start getting it in 4 and 5. Just remember, it's not like old school where we used to have an elongated preseason. We don't have a lot of preseason play. And so we're getting less as the future goes.
Yeah, and according to Mike Florio, we might be seeing a 20-game regular season sooner rather than later, which would be crazy fun, but crazy. I would just leave it at this. A lot of the people that we've talked to on this show, and a lot of people I've talked to in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, when I ask them, how did you do so well this year? How are you so dialed in? A lot of them will say, well, I was drafting in March. I was drafting in April. I was drafting in May. I was drafting in early June. And it really is amazing, as a player who has done this in the past in the KFFSC, it really is amazing how dialed in that you get when it comes to late July or August or even early September, how well that you can. And you look at the drafters we had tonight in Genesis and Revelations. I mean, the guys who have won a ton of money playing the FFPC. Todd Aaron, JD, Dan Williamson, Kevin Bassiker, Andrew Schellenberg, Larry Jilton, Brent Studebaker, Jake Belike, 2 guys we had on the show tonight. John Terry, a guy who's won 6 figures, multiple times. Todd Hunter, Hudson Reed, Vince Staffolino, guys who are drafting in not only the FFPC, but the KFFSC. Zeb Cap, Mark Behrens, Norm, Don Terminello, Ray Chung, Stu Keen. I mean, all these guys have been on our show for a reason. They're drafting early. They get dialed in. And it's not like they're massive volume drafters, but they do draft at specific times of the season to understand where their teams need to be going and where the players are going to be going as we get deeper into draft season. And that's why these guys win cash. So, and this is not a sales pitch. I'm not saying, hey, you need to draft in the FFPC and the KFFSC in April and May to be successful. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in my experience, interviewing a lot of these players, they have drafted early, the majority of them, and they've won a lot of money. So that is what I'll leave you with tonight. We talk a lot about player evaluation. We talk about a lot of what players we like, what players we don't. We're not telling you who to draft. We're not telling you at what level or what spot in the draft to be drafting these players. We're just telling you our opinions. You're going to do your own player evaluation. We're just telling you the earlier you draft, the better off you seem to be as far as what we've seen from players in the past, and we'll leave it at that. You don't want to draft till July or August? Hey, that's fine. Do what you want to do. Like, this is fantasy football. It's fun. So it's supposed to be fun, at least. So treat it as fun, and you will have a great time. Ferrell, KFFSC.com, at Ferrell Elliott, at KFFSC official. We went through almost 2 full hours tonight. It would have been almost 2 full hours if I would have hit the freaking start live stream now button, which I've never done before.
Where is Bryce when we need him?
Exactly.
Your best friend, Bryce.
Where was Bryce?
He
was commissioning. That was the problem. He was commissioning the Genesis and the Revelations drafts, which is why we didn't have him. So unfortunate. I'm surprised I didn't get a text from him saying, "Hey, idiot, start the stream." But we got a lot on, which is good. And hopefully we help people tonight. We will be back at it at 10 p.m. Eastern time next week with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for 2 full hours tonight, man. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk with you again next weekend.
See you soon, Balky.
That sounds great. That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank him. I want to thank Jake Fulike. I want to thank Brent Studebaker. I want to thank all the Genesis and Revelations drafters that made this such a pleasurable episode to cover tonight. The HSFF Hour will return next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, our normal time, and we will have a great guest to pop on that show to talk about redraft leagues or perhaps dynasty leagues. I don't know which way we're going to go with it yet. With dynasty leagues, rookie drafts popping off tomorrow in the FFPC, we may have a different venture going into next week's show. But follow us on social media at HSFF Hour, at FFPC, at Eric Balkman for more on that. In case you missed last night's high stakes fantasy football show on the Better Sports Network or the FFPC socials, we had Fantasy Pros Thor Nystrom and RotoWire's Alan Soslowski on. What a pair that was. Perfect combo of guests to have on right after the NFL draft for everything you need to know for FFPC Dynasty rookie drafts and early FFPC and Fantasy Pros leagues as well. Nystrom and Soslowski killed it. Check that out anywhere on the FFPC or Better Sports Network socials. We will be back with the high stakes fantasy football show on the Better Sports Network next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time with Bleacher Report's Gary Davenport. Don't think we'll get into any IDP stuff with him. We'll get into plenty of other stuff. So check that out next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. The RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown resumes this coming Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Myself and a special guest coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern on the FFPC socials. So be checking that out. Empire Leagues, Dynasty Startups available, myffpc.com. The FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, which now has a $100,000 grand prize at just a $35 entry fee, as well as the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, now a $300,000 grand prize. Sign up for those live slow drafts going on at myffpc.com. And, of course, the Fantasy Pros Championship. We have a draft coming up tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to bring it up right now because I'm commissioning the midnight draft tonight. If you want to sign up and go for $1 million in the FFPC Fantasy Pros Championship, you can do so tonight. We've already had a couple of drafts go off that Bryce is commissioning. In the midnight draft tonight, it is wide open. So definitely sign up for that right now and take your shot at $1 million. You never know. Maybe you become an FFPC millionaire tonight. myffpc.com is where to go for all this. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on it, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Your FFPC Dynasty Rookie Draft Weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Just to reiterate, because Dom Guzzetti's popping on right now on the YouTube chat. For the Sunrise at the Bourbon Turn at the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship in Louisville last year, I was not hungover for Sunday morning. I knew I was going to be up late, so I purposely did not drink much, if at all, on Saturday. but I knew I was also going to be working late. I probably fell asleep about 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and then that draft starts at 7:30 in the morning. I did not get enough sleep. Dom Gazzetti, can I catch Balky in a hungover draft? If you catch me in a hungover draft, you're probably going to be, you want to be drafting next to me because it won't be great. I will try to get more sleep this year, that weekend. I hate to do it because it takes away from the drafting time. But if that happens, so be it, Tom. And I will look forward to drafting against you. I will look forward to drafting against everybody who's watching this right now in the KFFSC. And if you can't make it to Louisville, draft online. And if you can't do that, sign up at myffpc.com for all the great drafts we have going on. Dom Gazzetti is saying, say buonasera, Balky. I will say buonasera, Balky. Enjoy your FFPC Dynasty rookie drafts tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for watching. We will be back next Friday, and we'll be back with the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown on Tuesday. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks so much.